The opposition describes the budget as a nothing budget. Barbadians have their say on the proposals. And in sports, St. Leonard's relying on their bowlers again to bring home the under-15 title.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
A very good evening to you. I am Lisa Lloyd with the CBC Evening News. Opposition leader Owen Arthur has described Finance Minister Chris Sinclair's budget as an exercise in bogus accounting and nothingness. He says no real relief has been offered to Barbadians who are still suffering 10 months after his last budget presentation. Mr. Arthur says there is a real crisis and disorder at the core of the financial and economic affairs of the country. Mr. Arthur says no expenditure control measures to bring the economy in check were revealed as Barbadians continue to grapple with a drastic increase in the cost of living.
This is a government that sought and won an election on the promise to deal with the cost of living. Cost of living was to be job number 1, job number 2, and job number 3. And not a word in this budget about how to deal with the principal matter for which the Democratic Labour Party was elected. These forms of flush and flatulence from the Minister of Finance had nothing to do with the matters that affect the lives of the people.
Mr. Arthur says due to the state of the economy, the average Barbadian is now struggling to make ends meet.
Our sturdy, resilient middle class is now becoming the working poor. The working class has been now reduced to a new poverty and confronted daily by measures that bite into the standard of living. It is not only at the level of the individual and the household, sir. Our enterprises of Barbados have lost significant income and wealth and are now operating under financial siege.
The opposition leader went further to say that Barbados has lost its way, is spiraling out of control, and underachievement and lack of progress have now become the order of the day.
A nation that was once widely and greatly admired as a model of stability, of resourcefulness, and progressive ideals and high accomplishments is now, Mr. Speaker, sir, being rapidly seen as degenerating into an economic wasteland and a disorderly place. Underperformance has now become standard, and there's a reduction and miniaturization of our national goals, giving rise to a miniaturization of our national accomplishments.
Mr. Arthur accused the government and the finance minister of feeding Barbadians a diet of misinformation, knocking the 0.3% growth in the economy last year, contending that GDP at current prices fell by 2.9%.
A 0.2% growth last year, sir, is a dismal performance. But it was not realized because in real terms, sir, the government should be showing that the economy fell. But even if he was to accept that 0.2% growth, it has to be said that this growth was being retarded by a choice of wrong policies by the Democratic Labour Party. It was retarded, Mr. Speaker, sir, by inertia. And it was retarded as well by government's too rigid pursuit of the goals set out in the medium-term fiscal strategy.
Saying there can't be any more half measures and arguing that Barbados's very survival is on the line, Mr. Arthur told the House the opposition would support a financial solution to the Clico crisis as a short-term solution, even if it meant borrowing to achieve that goal.
Not a word has been spoken about the contingency arrangements that the government is putting in place to ensure that those persons who are potentially in peril can have the risks and uncertainties pertaining to their existence lifted. Improperly addressed, the human tragedy among some of the most vulnerable of our pensioners, sir, will increase if the CLICO matter is not dealt with such that when 2012 comes, sir, all is well, institutions will collapse, and this uncertainty has to be dealt with.
Tourism Minister Richard Seeley says just over 365,000 tourists have visited Barbados so far this year. He made the disclosure during his presentation in the 2011 budget debate. He says this is likely to be a benchmark year for tourism, noting that arrivals are likely to surpass the 2007 figures. He also strongly defended Barbados's performance in the current global crisis, saying it has done well and has been rated top among developing countries by several international entities and on the UN Human Development Index. Mr. Seeley also disclosed that the Barbados National Oil Company has entered the futures market and has done some hedging.
My information is that BNOC has done some hedging, not any more than 30% of their product. That hedging produced profits that were used to subsidize gas and diesel prices in May and June. So, I mean, we have to look at it both ways. And in fact, if we had done some more hedging, we probably won't be paying the price that we're paying today because now the oil has gone back up. I don't have a problem with it. Once we have professionals, I think we have enough good young brains in Barbados that can use these creative instruments in order to exact savings for the people of Barbados. So we don't need to be ashamed of the fact that we are prepared again to go a little beyond the norm in order to see that we have a better society for all Barbadians to live in.
Meanwhile, Barbadians have been having their say on the budget.
And please, whatever the LP government do, that is the final thing. Whatever the LP government do, I'm pleased with.
Whatever they do, we have to live with it, no matter what.
So you're pleased?
I'm pleased with it.
Things are harder in other countries, and we are not just getting the full hard part, but things are very hard, and I think they need to ease up a little on it.
You should take off the VAT off the light bills and all that for the poor people.
The government is doing a bad job because they get it in a bad state from the last government, but St. Clair trying the best. It's hard all over the world, so you got to try and work with it, you understand? You can't really do nothing. Ever see England, the burn out England, but it's still cool, you understand? It's getting taken everywhere in the world. But trying to do a little more ease, that's what we like.
We'll have more on the evening news in just a moment. Police are awaiting the results of a post-mortem to determine the death of a St. Peter man who was involved in a car accident this morning. Dead is Elon Anderson Hines, 36, of Collins, St. Peter. He died after the vehicle he was driving was involved in an accident with another car driven by 26-year-old Jason Ketter of Orange Crescent, St. Thomas. The accident occurred just after 7 at the junction of Orange Crescent and the Ronald Map Highway. Concerned citizens and friends of the victims of the double murder at Salters in St. George are holding a walk for peace on Saturday. The march will be for 1 hour from 11 to 12, starting at Jubilee Gardens and ending in Hero Square. Former manager of the National Council for Substance Abuse, Tessa Chatterton-Shaw, says Barbadians are being asked to wear white as a symbol of peace at the march. She says the idea is to promote a safe and secure environment in Barbados. Ms. Chatterton-Shaw lost her uncle and cousin-in-law in the double murder. We'll check in with our regional neighbours in just a moment, but first, here's our courts quiz. Where in Christchurch would you have found the once active neighbourhood known as Cave Hill? In tonight's courts quiz, we asked you where in Christchurch would you have found the once active neighbourhood known as Cave Hill? The answer, east of Bannatyne and west of the Newton slave burial ground.
Across the Caribbean is brought to you with the compliments of CIBC First Caribbean.
In regional news now, Liat pilots are applying a new strategy to their ongoing dispute with management with the hope of resolving what they say is a very unsettled state of affairs. Pressed on whether industrial action is on the cards, the Liat Pilots Union attorney Anthony Astafan did not rule it out. The pilots hope that their approach, guided by their legal team, would help them arrive at a consensus with management, noting that industrial action would be a last resort. The Pilots Union and its legal team outlined a plan of action that includes discussions with shareholder governments, Antigua and Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Letters to the respective prime ministers will be dispatched by the end of the week, and the meeting is expected to be scheduled at the earliest possible date. Residents in Antigua may soon benefit from direct travel into South America's largest nation, Brazil, if RedJet gets its way. That is according to information from Georgetown, which has reported that the low-cost carrier is keen on establishing direct links from Guyana into both Brazil and Antigua. The possibility of a single stop in Guyana before flying to Brazil would reduce the number of flights residents currently need to make in order to fly into South America's largest economy.
Across the Caribbean, brought to you with the compliments of CIBC First Caribbean.